I'm Liz Larson with Transform One Idea, where we're always talking about ways to shift consciousness and how one small idea can create the biggest change. So with that being said, I'm here with my dear friend, Carmela Lamana, and from powerofrisingspirit.com. Hello, Carmela.
Hi, my darling. How are you?
I'm great. I'm so happy to be talking to you, especially about this topic. So for everybody out there, we wanted to share a conversation that we've been having over, maybe a month, 6 weeks, maybe even more. It's about salt, but it's kind of a wild ride. So we're going to bring you in on it. And it starts with Carmela having a dream. So Carmela, will you just jump right into it? What were you dreaming about? What happened?
Well, I'm going to back up a little bit because I was told, for me, I'm a healer, as you know. And so I've been in touch with some of the ancient, I guess they're remembering, I'm re-remembering some of the ancient techniques of healing and modules and stuff like that. So there's one particular night, I had this dream that was so vivid. And it was so real. Like, when you remember those dreams that they're actually real, they feel real. To me, those are real dreams that actually happen, not in this realm, but in another realm. So I dreamt about putting salt, Himalayan salt, which is, I'm not sure if you can see it. I put some in a little container. This coarse, it's coarse salt. You can use it for cooking or you can use it for bathing. Putting some of those a little bit in the palm of the hands of the people that I was healing. And in fact, that's what they told me. They told me to put it in their hands while I was doing the healing on them. I woke up and never thought nothing of it. Just, I'm like, just another dream, whatever. But it kept in the back of my head. It kept popping up. It kept popping up. It kept coming back to remember. And so one day I decided to tell you about it. And we were discussing, about the salt and the modality of healing and all of that. And then I tried on one of my clients. And it was really interesting. The results that I found, or that she found, that the healing was so much more intense. So then you tried it, I believe that after that, you gave it a shot. Or something happened with you with the headache.
Yeah. I'll get into that because that's kind of, the start of my experience with it. But did your client say, so she said more intense.
Mm-hmm.
If I remember the story right, you said that this is a person who's familiar with healings, right? She's experienced. Yes. So definitely not her first time having a healing with you.
Yes.
Or having a healing in general.
That's right.
Right. So she, this experience was different for her in some way, more intense. Did she give any other descriptors about what happened?
Well, she said that she felt tingling in her hands, going up her arms or going down her arms. And this was just one client, because I've tried it on a couple of other clients. But this one client, she said she felt, that it was, her hands were tingling and that the energy was more intense when I was doing the healing on her. And afterwards, when she kind of opened up and I felt the salt, it was so hot. And it was incredible because I never expected that, right? Never expected that to be so hot in her hands. And I'm not sure if they actually activated some of the minerals in it. I don't know. But
so I don't know if I asked you this before or not, but is there any chance that you followed up with her later? Did she ever tell you any more about her experience, if she felt better in any other ways or anything shifted?
I never really, no, I did follow up with her, but she never really elaborated too much on it, if anything has shifted. She did say that she felt better afterwards, but she couldn't really describe anything really special about it.
Yeah. Interesting. I mean, it's just interesting to have that data to know what a person, experiences afterwards.
Of course.
So you tried it a second time, right? You tried it,
Yes.
before I did with Len, right? Your husband.
Yes.
And what was his experience? So if I remember correctly, you told me two different things about putting it in his hand and also using it on his sore shoulder.
Yes. Well, for him, he has a shoulder that's very painful, and so it gives him a lot of problems. And I thought, you know what, why not try it on his shoulder and see what happens? But when I put it in the hands and I was doing the healing on him, he'd say he had the same reaction, that the hands were tingling and that he felt the heat in his hands. And he also felt heat in his chest area, near where the salt was on his shoulder, which it was interesting. So I do healing on him often, not all the time, but I do it often. And he's not a man that elaborates too much on it. He just gives you, the basic of what you need to know and keeps you down. But it was interesting that he said that he felt the heat and he felt tingling in his hands. And I also felt the heat in his chest where he was, like, close to where the salt was. So that was interesting for me. The other thing, if I remember correctly, he said that the same thing. It was different. The healing was different. It was different this time.
That's interesting that they notice something's different, something changed from before, especially people that you've worked on, more than one time. They have something to compare it to. So did he notice a reduction in pain in that shoulder?
For the time being, yes. But what I'm gathering from, that I've used it on a couple of clients plus on him, that you have to constantly use it. You have to constantly do it all the time. Just like anything else, you have to constantly be at it, right?
Yeah.
I also tried on another client who she's also a healer, and she's also has done healing with me, activations and healing with me. And so I decided to put it on her, and she asked, if I asked if it was okay for her to do it. She said, definitely. And I know she's more in tune with it. And I also know that she is the one who can give me more information on it because she's so open to it. And her experience was similar to the tingling on the hands and up the arms of where you had. But what was different from that one was that when I was doing the healing, I actually got that I needed to put my hands on her hands to activate the salt. I don't know why. I don't know the reason behind it, but I did. And as soon as I put my hands on both of her hands, the heat that started to come out, it was incredible. And she said her visions from the healing that I was giving her, her visions were so much more intense. It was so much more vivid. And that she has not had a healing that way.
But the heat is really interesting to me because that's my experience with it too. And I'll share mine, but the heat and also that, so tingling, but I almost feel like it feels like a little bit of an electrostatic energy. Like that's what it feels like to me. So that's the same across the board for me. And the experiences I have is that a heat that's created. And that's interesting that she's saying, while she was on the table and you were working on her, she was visualizing some things, and that was more intense. That's what she was saying.
Yeah, because she gets visions when when she lies on my table and I do healing. She said that the visions that she's had, they were so much more intense and so much more vivid that she has not had that before. She said my whole body was acting differently, was feeling different. So that's what she had that experience. I followed up with her, and if I remember correctly, she had a couple of days where she was taking in way too much energy
Yeah.
and it was too intense for her.
Yeah.
And her body reacted in a way to stop it, which, was, she had to basically take a step back and readjust her own energy to it. And she said it has been different ever since. She has come more to the awareness of what she needs to do, what is it that her path is. So more awareness, I guess, it has come to her after this healing.
It's very interesting, isn't it? And the thing of it is, because it's not like a modality that's out there. I mean, salt obviously has been used since there have been people. I mean, we have to have it stay alive. It's in our blood. It's everywhere. But, it's not like you can really find it and study it. There are some places. You've sent me some amazing articles. We found that it really is useful for detoxing. I know that you can salt load for detoxing your thyroid is a big one.
Mm-hmm.
That it's good for your adrenals. It activates your adrenals. It's good for your metabolism. So we're talking about Celtic sea salt or Himalayan sea salt,
yes,
not table salt. There's a big difference. Yeah. So, we're talking about Celtic sea salt and Himalayan salt. They really, you showed that. Hold them up to the camera again, if you will. Yeah. You really can see that they're actually crystals. They're crystalline in nature.
Yes. Actually, I do have something else here, and I have this box, which you can pick it up at any health store. And this one here is used, a lot of people use it for Soleil. If you know what Soleil is basically a brine that you create. It has to be in a glass jar that you can use. And you put 1 or 2 of these in, and you let them sit overnight. I think it's 24 hours. And then you take a tablespoon of that, and you add it to your water in the morning, and you drink that, because it helps your cells absorb. See these? That's where it looks like. Right.
So it's interesting, because I know people are probably saying, "What are you talking about? Adding salt? We're supposed to eliminate salt, from our diets." It's very interesting because many years ago we had one of those chiropractors who was also an MD. He was also an iridologist. He also knew homeopathy. Back when these kind of healers knew everything. I mean, they were so highly educated. Mm-hmm. And he was talking to my husband. My husband would get this terrible burning in his heels. And they thought it was maybe plantar fasciitis and this and that and the other thing. But the bottom line was he couldn't get any relief. And it would a lot of times be after he'd be out doing sports, and he really, really sweats a lot, his shirt would be soaking wet and that kind of thing. So the doctor told him to use about a teaspoon of Celtic sea salt. And that's when we introduced Celtic sea salt into our home for cooking and all of that, which the taste is so much different. If you haven't tried Celtic sea salt or Himalayan, even between the two, they taste very different. And they add a different flavor to your food. But what he said was, you don't have to worry about high blood pressure with these kinds of salts. That the minerals actually help your body hydrate. And in his case, he had a severe dehydration at one point. And the doctor said that in a severe dehydration or heat stroke, that the cells actually kind of, in a way, stay open. And they don't really absorb the minerals and the water. So you can drink as much as you want and your body does not absorb. And he said that the Celtic sea salt actually helped that. And sure enough, it stopped the pain in his heels.
Wow.
And so it wasn't something he did every day, but he did have to do it for a little while. And now when the heels are painful, he knows he's got to have some salt. Taking an electrolyte does not work the same as using the salt. He's tried both because, drinking salt water, it doesn't taste that great.
No.
So he thought, okay, well, maybe I'll try more electrolytes. And it didn't work the same. So even way back then, this healer, doctor knew that was necessary. So anyway, if you're worried about doing any of these things with high blood pressure, research it a little bit, because it is a different thing. And of course, we're not doctors and can't
That's right.
prescribe, but this has been our experience. So, well, fast forward. Oh, go ahead.
But I do have high blood pressure. I've had high blood pressure for years. And I do have a lot of dehydration because of the high blood pressure that I have.
Yeah.
So a lot of the times when I'm really severely dehydrated, I only put like one or two of these, maybe I put a couple, depends on the bottle of the water that I have. If it's 500 mil or 250 mil, I put a couple of little pebbles, like little things like this, right? They're very little. And I put it directly in my bottle of water. And once they dissolve, actually, when I tried it, the first time that I tried it, it was maybe I had like a half a cup of water in there left. And I put one or two. And when I drank it, it did not taste salty. It tasted sweet to me, which was very interesting and strange. But it tasted sweet. And as soon as I finished the drink that, I drank a little more water. I wasn't dehydrated. I wasn't pasty. Like, when you get the dehydrated feeling and it's pasty in your mouth and you can't just, all that went away.
So I had a similar experience. I had worked with 3 clients doing access consciousness bars, and it's a different modality for me. It's more of a hands-on modality. I usually work with NLP, which is and some other methods as well, Sedona and some of those, but they're more of a talking type therapy. So this is something new for me, and it's more hands-on, and it's a big energetic exchange. And I did 3 people back to back. And after that, I could not get enough water. I kept drinking and drinking for a couple of days. And I just had that same tackiness in the mouth. I just, I had obviously used a lot of my energy and electrolytes without realizing it. So about the 3rd day, you probably suggested it to me to put the salt in the water, and I did. And really within 20 minutes or so, I did not have that terrible, terrible thirst anymore. And, it was probably exactly what was happening with my husband. And it was, giving the cells the minerals to be able to uptake the water and hold on to it. Mm-hmm. So let's fast forward a little bit. So It's a month or so later, maybe longer, since you told me this thing about using the salt with your client. Well, I get migraines, and I get the kind that have the flashing light in the eyes. And I normally see my acupuncturist, and he fixes it, and it's fine. But since a pretty big energetic experience, several of them that you and I had around Mount Shasta, and then in sacred sites in Sicily on our tour, I get them more often. And they're less controllable for me. And so it's an issue. So I woke up actually, no, let me back up. I was watching Netflix and I got sucked in. And you know how you get on Netflix and you just can't stop there. It's somehow addictive. So it's lately in the evening, 1 in the morning, maybe midnight, 1 in the morning. And all of a sudden I get a little hole in my vision, which is a signal that a migraine is starting. It's like being flashed in the eye with a camera. So I'm thinking, wait, am I getting a migraine? And then the light starts. And it was kind of a different migraine for me anyway, because it was circular. Normally it starts over here and moves through my vision this way. So it's like electricity that moves, like a jagged line of electricity that moves across my vision normally. This was a circle that was going like that. Within about a minute, I was really aware, yes, I'm getting migraine. And I have a window of maybe 15 minutes to 30 minutes before pain starts. Ooh. So I have, a lot of methods that I use. I use some homeopathy, I use some herbs, and then I use Tylenol and ibuprofen with it to mitigate the pain and the cycle of the migraine. If you're familiar with migraines at all, if you get them, they have a cycle that they go through. The problem for me is that if it happens in the night and I'm not able to mitigate the cycle or the pain, if it starts again, then I'm really screwed in a way because, you know, the pain is terrible. I'm really disabled at that point.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
If I can mitigate it, I'm fine. You know, I may have a little headache. I maybe don't feel great, but I'm okay. So in the night, it's a problem. And I've had the experience of the migraine cycle starting like every 4 hours. So I panic a little, you know. So I jump out of bed and run in and get all my herbs and homeopathy and all of that. And I hear your voice in my head, and you're way too often in my head. I'm always having
in mind.
I'm always having to tell Carmela, get out of my head. So she's in my head, and this time it's a good thing. And I hear her, that story she told me about the dream and the salt and using it with a client. And so my brain starts working, and I'm thinking, okay, this looks like electricity. It looks electrical. So I'm wondering if I could use the salt as a ground in some way, or, you know, as a draw for the electricity. I know it maybe sounds crazy, but if you've ever had migraines, you know, you panic a little bit. You're like, okay, this is not a good thing and I need to fix it.
Yeah.
Also, I'm a person who loves to experiment and I love ideas. So this idea in the middle of the night was kind of fascinating to me, along with having a migraine panic, you know. So I run back to the kitchen and I fill my hands, you know, just about this much with Celtic sea salt, because that's what I had in the house. And I go back and I get in bed and I'm laying in bed with 2 hands full of salt, like a weirdo, you know. And, you know, I don't know if this is, I mean, I have no idea if it's going to do anything or not anything.
Yeah.
And it seemed like something. So I put the salt in my hands and I wait, and it was 90 seconds, 1 minute and 30 seconds, and the flashing was gone.
Wow.
So because this was a different kind of a flashing in my eye, it was a little different. I thought, okay, well, maybe it's different. You know, maybe it ended. Maybe something else I took stopped the migraine, which is not normally my experience. I have to say I have had it stop once or twice before, but not very, very, very rarely. Okay. So 90 seconds and the light is gone, and I never get the pain as far as I know in the night. And I fell asleep with salt in my hands and woke up with a bed full of salt the next morning. My husband's like, what are you doing? What is going on? What kind of weirdness are you into now? So the next day I did have a bit, like just this much of what's called a migraine hangover. So you're aware that you've had a migraine, that your head still feels a little grainy, like sandpaper on the brain. There's just, I mean, you're just aware, your system's aware that something has happened. So that made me know that the cycle did continue.
Okay.
On some level. But actually, even though I did have a touch of a migraine hangover, I felt pretty good. I had a lot of energy. I felt good, you know, felt positive and up. So the next night, and to back up just a little, when you have that migraine hangover, there's always a threat of another migraine. I mean, you can almost feel it there, that there's a possibility of another migraine. So I did have a tiny bit of that day, but by the end of the day, I felt really great. And I thought, okay, this cycle's over. Mm-hmm. So that night, my dog always wakes me up at 3 a.m. She bumps my door, one bump, knock to let her out to go to the bathroom. So I get the bump on the door, and I always look at my clock, and it was 2 a.m. It wasn't 3 a.m. I thought, oh, that's weird. It's an hour early. And I had the lightning in my eye right about here, which means that it had been happening for some time.
Wow.
So it was moving. So there's always the chance that she knew what was happening and woke me up, because animals really have such an interesting...
I totally believe that.
Yeah, they have an interesting way of doing that. So she may have woke me up because she knew that was happening. But I thought, oh, crap. One, yay, she woke me up and I can, you know, mitigate the pain with my regular regime. But also, I'm getting a migraine again. So the later I catch the lightning, the later I'm able to take my medicine before the lightning, as the lightning happens, the less I'm able to mitigate the pain. So the sooner the better.
Okay.
So it was obvious that this was a little bit longer. So I ran in, took all my stuff, and also put the salt in my hands, because I'm thinking, I don't know. I don't know if it worked. I felt like it did. My intuition told me it helped. So I did it again. So I am with my hands full of salt in bed. And this time it was 3 minutes and the light was gone. And I did not have the pain, any kind of a migraine hangover the next day. I felt really full of energy and bright and light, and I just felt good. So of course, I don't know if I had told you the first day, but I definitely told you the second day, about my discovery, and I was pretty excited about it. So a couple of days passed, and did you have something else?
No, he wants to be part of it. So.
Oh, Gabriel, he always wants to be a part of everything. He's your mystical cat.
Yeah.
So the story moves on. So a couple of days pass, and it's the weekend of maybe it's been a week, I guess. My husband was back home again, and so maybe it was Friday. So I had wanted to get into our bookstore that has crystals and things, because I wanted to buy some spheres of salt. I thought I'd seen them there before, or even a shape, something that wasn't going to get all over my bed, So I thought that might be more useful. So I wanted to go, and he went with me. But that day he had a terrible headache, and he has high blood pressure like you do. And he was very pale. His eyes were glassy and dull, if you can imagine glassy and dull at the same time. He just really wasn't feeling well. So I went in and I found that they had these nice spheres, perfect for your hands, and I asked him if he would hold them. Well, I'm in there all the time, and the girls know me, and one of the girls wanted to show me something in the back room. I had been telling her about the migraines and about the light that I see in my eyes and about the salt. And they were absolutely fascinated. It was like light bulbs went on, for the girls at the store. I mean, you could see them. So as an NLP practitioner, I'm watching people's facial expressions and eyes, and you could see them, looking to the side and really listening intently, and then storing it, they were really so active in the way they were looking and reacting to this information, like something that you said, like awoken in them, like, oh my God, that makes sense, And I think they're also trying to figure out from their own years of knowledge, where does this fit? Okay, so they take me to a back room to look at a painting of from Mount Shasta, from Lake Shastina and the Temple of the Sun. And it's a mythical place that is in Mount Shasta that some people claim to have actually seen. And I have seen this painting before, but what she wanted to show me is what the light looked like. So the painting is very beautiful, but it's just blue and white, and the white is like all this electrostatic energy. And I'm like, oh my God, that's exactly what it looks like in my eyes. The artist, the way they depicted it was exactly the way it looked. So it was very interesting. And we stood and talked for about 5 minutes. So my husband was out in the front of the store, and he was holding the salt spheres, one in each hand. And so I came back out, and the first thing I noticed is his color looked better already. And his eyes looked clear. And I just asked him, and I was shocked. I said, are you feeling a little better? And he kind of was surprised. He kind of looked around like this, and he said, actually I do. What was interesting is that he did feel better the rest of the day. He did not complain of feeling terrible and having a headache. He looked good the rest of the day. It was kind of shocking, kind of amazing. So that was, the first week starting to use the salt. And then, of course, because I have a curious mind, the experiments continued. So
Yes, and I'm curious to know about it, and I'm sure that our audience will be curious to know where else have you tried it?
well, lots of places. But I do want to stop for a second in the middle of all these stories. And I want to say something to you personally, but also to our wider audience, that you took a chance. It's not really a risk, but a chance. So you dreamt something.
Yes,
It felt real to you.
yes,
And you didn't just let it go and disregard it.
that's
You took it as a possible message or real information
yes.
about the next step in how you work as a healer.
Yes.
Now, you work with somebody that your husband and a client that you're familiar with,
Mm-hmm.
and ask them to try. It's a weird thing to do, but it also takes courage to say, hey, I'm not sure what this is about, but I'd like to try. Would you try with me? And so what I want to say to everyone is, now that things are changing on the planet, we all can feel how weird the energy is. Half the time we can't remember our name, or what happened yesterday or where we're going. Like, people are feeling weird waves of energy, hearing sounds. I mean, it's a mess, right?
Yep.
And at the same time, it seems as though many of us are receiving more and more information about healing and bodies, spirituality, ascension, the whole gamut of things. And so I think that it's a really good example that you're setting. And also, for all of us who have benefited from this, and all who will benefit, the fact that you were willing to try it and to listen to that intuition. So do you have anything to say about that, about what made you go ahead and give it a shot? Or
Well, then to me, it's all about trusting, right? We do get all these other things, but I've also, um, and we've worked on our body and, paying attention to your body and the feelings of your body. And to me, I'm more in tune with that now than I ever was before. So I really try to pay attention of what I get and how I feel with it. If I feel aligned with it or not. And that seemed to me to feel aligned, especially because it was so vividly and is so more than vividly, it was so real.
yeah.
And in fact, I've had three more things. I have one which I haven't discussed with you yet, but there is, two other modality or two other things that came after that to work with. And I've tried one other thing, which was really interesting. But back to the salt thing, then we can discuss the other modality, the other thing together. But the salt, we have to think about it. It's been here since Earth was created. And it has so many minerals from the earth itself, and which we nowadays we are missing those minerals in our body because the food doesn't have those minerals anymore they used to have. So it makes total sense why I was shown the salt. And it's also a crystal too, right?
Well, yeah, well, there's that. And I also think too that, like I experienced with working with my own clients, where there's a big energetic thing happening. I think with all the energetic shifts that are happening, even on the planet, even with weird weather patterns, being hot one day and cold the next and out of season, and all the things that are happening, they're talking about pole shifts and
Yeah.
all those kind of things. I think those do take a toll on our physical bodies. So I think with that, things are changing there too, where we need things that we maybe didn't need before.
That's
Or we need more of something where we didn't before. And I think this could be an example of that. I want to say too, there's something that you said about this that strikes me too, that you said it stayed with you. So it wasn't just a dream that came and went. It really stayed with you.
Yes.
It's like, okay, this has some importance. And so I just want to say to everyone out there, especially practitioners, if something like this, if you dream about it, if an idea pops up, have the courage to give it a try, because you might help, a lot of people. I mean, Carmela's little discovery, it's not a little discovery, but in the moment it's just a dream and let's try, has already helped a number of people. It's helped me immensely. So I'll kind of continue on with how it's helped me some more. So I got the spheres and I ended up putting them by my bed. And it just occurred to me to maybe use them on my chest. I have some issues. Sometimes my body manifests some symptoms of lung problem. And so I just put them on my chest, and there's meridians here for lung and heart and kidney. And so, I kind of used them to massage, but which felt amazing. That was great. I mean, the spherical ball,
Yeah.
I felt that heat that you're talking about, instantly. The salt felt hot, and I felt a heat on my skin that it's hard to describe the kind of heat it was, but there was definitely heat coming from the salt. And I used it, there for a little while, but I also instantly felt a drawing sensation, like a pulling sensation, like maybe pulling stuff out. And I know that's possible. You can use castor oil and different things to pull things out of the lungs. So that was interesting enough, and it felt great. But what was even more interesting is the next day I really had a lot of energy. And as I did this over, 4, 5, 6 days, I noticed that my system felt a little more alive, a little brighter. My mood was better. I felt brighter. I don't know how else to describe it, but my energy felt up and really good. So, that was a really great side effect. I mean, whenever we can have more energy, that's incredible.
Yeah, definitely. But also think about why, from people who don't live near the ocean, and they have, they're full of arthritis, or they feel pain, aches and pains, they feel down, they get depressed. And then the moment they go to the ocean and they go in that ocean and swim for 5, 10, 15 minutes, however it is, the amount, and they come out of it, they feel different. The pains are gone. They feel more alive. Their skin, even actually, it's better, because I've heard about that. The skin, if you bathe in the salt water, skin becomes smoother. It becomes more healthier. So all these other modalities, which is a natural thing of the earth, think about that. How good is that? And we didn't discover that.
No,
Nature.
It's so true. I remember hearing stories of my own grandmother going to these mineral mines, salt mines, where there was, water, and they would be there for 3 or 4 days and breathing, the air, which is, we understand from Himalayan salt lamps, is negative ions.
Mm-hmm.
And her arthritis would be better for, 6 months or so. And I've had the experience myself when we do our tours in Sicily, going in that water. The Mediterranean Sea is so full of salt. It's buoyant. You don't even have to swim. You just float. Mm-hmm. Of feeling stronger and stronger and stronger over the days. Where I live, I don't go to the ocean ever. I mean, it's 2 hours away, and our ocean on the Oregon coast is beautiful, but it's very cold and windy and not lovely most of the time. So that experience of being in the salt in the Mediterranean, I knew that really did help. I, figured it was just a mineral bath thing. But this thing that we're talking about now, using it in concentrated areas to remove pain and to remove a migraine or an electrical headache, that's like a next level thing, I think.
Yeah. And I want to share something else that just came to mind that I remembered when I went to buy the salt. I was looking for it because I couldn't find this bigger chunks of salt at the health store. And I talked to a lady that was working there, and she's like, "Oh, I know what you're talking about." And she showed me, and she said, "I come from Poland. We have tanks with with Himalayan salt water that people go to bathe, to dunk themselves in, because they feel better."
Wow. Well, and in the metaphysical world, people have a spiritual world. People have talked for ever about taking a salt bath.
Yeah.
Clear.
Yes.
To clear negative energy, to clear.
Okay.
So, I mean, there's even that aspect of it that, people have known and been using it for a lot of years. And I think, what we're talking about here is kind of just a rediscovering. It's obviously not new, but a rediscovering of some ways that it can be used in a more intense and direct manner.
Mm-hmm.
So I have another story to tell. This was fascinating. So we have a Circle of Eight, a Lynn McTaggart's Intention Experiment Circle of Eight group. And I thought I would bring the salt because I'm an experimenter and these ideas get my mind whirling. And I thought, okay, if there's an opportunity to use the salt during the circle, we'll try and see what happens. So in our group, we're usually use a circle, and then everyone is touching when we put our intention on the person in the center of the circle. Lots of times they're not in the center, they're still a part of the circle. And it's very interesting because you really do feel, I do, and everyone in our group describes really feeling energy in the hands.
Yes.
Like that tingly electrostatic energy. So one of the gals had a problem with her throat. It's a chronic problem with her throat, and dry and scratchy and inflamed vocal cords. And she asked specifically if we could have someone with a hand on the front and a hand on the back, which we don't normally do.
Mm.
And so Leah, my daughter, said, hey, what if we use the salt? And we asked if permission to try it. And she said, sure, no problem. And so she took the salt sphere and held it here on her throat.
Mm-hmm.
And I was the person in the back. I was standing behind her. And my daughter was directly across. And she said that we'd share what our impressions are after the intention. And my daughter said it looked like a blue sphere was surrounding me and Anita, the person in the circle. The person in the circle with the throat, she said she had never experienced anything so intense, kind of like your client.
Ooh.
The intensity. And she just kept saying, wow, wow. So I had the opportunity to see her about a week later I was doing a treatment for her. And she brought it up again. She said that experience with, being in the circle with that salt on my throat, she said, it just felt like the brightest light. She had her eyes closed just experiencing. And she just said the experience was almost unexplainable how intense it was. The rest of the group did say they really described a heightened level of intensity of that electrostatic energy. Yeah. So that was interesting in a group form with just one person holding it. The next time we went, I didn't bring the salt, so we didn't try again, but we will in our next circle see what happens with that. Mm-hmm. The thing about it is we just really don't know why. We don't have an explanation.
That's right. Yeah.
But to me, I don't think that matters. I think it's the continuing to see what else is possible with.
Oh, of course. And like you, I do run the Circle of Eight. I call it the Sacred Circle of Healing of Eight, and also do meditation classes. And I actually used it in the meditation classes with our students, with our students. And they also, some of them, it was interesting, some of them was hot and some of them was cold. The salt stayed cold in their hands.
Interesting.
And some of them turned hot. But they all experienced a heightened visions in the meditation class, which it was interesting. They all felt more, I'm going to say grounded, for lack of better words. They all felt more grounded, but they also felt the more intensity with the meditation, which was interesting. I believe I didn't try. I don't even remember if I tried in the Circle of Eight or I haven't had the chance to try it. But I will definitely want to try in the Circle of Eight to see if any of the healing, the intentions that we put out, if it intensifies with the salt in our hands or doesn't.
It's interesting. While you were saying that, I just remembered another thing that happened. And it reminds me of you're talking about the meditation class and the energy. And I'm thinking, really, I think we disregard the amount of actual electrostatic energy that we're creating.
Yeah.
The electricity, I don't know if it's electrostatic, but let's say electricity, real energy that we're creating with our meditations, with these healing circles, with healing modalities. What it reminded me of is I was doing another of the bar sessions, the access bar sessions. And the person I was working with, their waves of energy were so intense that it started to be uncomfortable for me. Now, it wasn't negative. It wasn't bad. It was very, very intense. And I started to feel like, I'm not sure how much more of this my poor body can handle. So my client got up and went to the restroom. And while she did, I had the spheres and I took off my shoes and put my feet on them. And it evened out. I was able to complete the session where it was really comfortable for me. So that was interesting. If I have to imagine or really make up what happened, is that the energy was just a little more grounded. It was able to pull out and through. And so that was interesting enough for me that, my plan is to have the salt in my office, not just for my clients, but for myself to use in session. The other interesting thing was I've started having people, when they get up off the table, hold the salt in their hands.
Okay.
And that seems to equalize them quickly, because sometimes people are a little dizzy. I mean, a lot has happened in their energetic and neurological fields. And so the salt seems to bring them back to earth quickly. The other thing is that I did have a person do it on the table during a bar session once.
Okay.
They only did it for, maybe 5, 6, 7 minutes, but it calmed them. The person was a little unsure about the process and maybe a little nervous. And so I also noticed while the salt was in her hands that the energy that moved was stronger.
Wow, that's interesting.
It was, and then it minimized a little once she took the salt out of her hand. So that was another
wow.
Yeah,
that was cool.
Yeah.
But the other thing that I want to remind our audience that if they were to try this, first of all, please let us know your results. Second of all, do not hold it for a longer period of time, because it does not work. And if you hold it, this is what I'm hearing, if you hold it for a long time, it will reverse the effect.
Well, I have had that experience actually. So I was really struggling with my lungs and I thought I'd put the salt on me. And so, as many of us do, and men, if you're listening, plug your ears for this part. We put things in our bra, crystals and salt. So I did put the salt in my bra, and then I forgot about it. I mean, if you can even imagine, I forgot about it. And as the day progressed, I did feel more and more and more drained. I really started to be tired and uncomfortable. And when I got home, I realized that I still had this salt in my bra. So I took it out, and after maybe 30 minutes, I noticed that my energy moved back again. And I felt good. There was no long-lasting effect, but it was, I don't know. I mean, maybe it's a pulling of energy. I can't even begin to tell you. I didn't even notice they were there at that point, but my energy was much, much lower.
Well, the words that come to me is moderation.
Yeah.
Moderation and balance. I think these two things need to be very well thought of, respected, and followed. Because without balance in our life, we tend to get off kilter. And the same thing with the salt or with the medicine that we use. And let's respect medicine for the medicine that they are.
Yeah.
Doesn't matter what they are. Doesn't matter if it's an herb. Doesn't matter if it's salt. It doesn't matter what the medicine is. It is a medicine.
Yeah, you're 100% right about that. You do want to, it's great to play, it's great to experiment, and you want to just do everything mindfully and understand that it's a tool and a medicine, a remedy. Possibly with all those, we want to be careful and mindful. I think mindful is a really good word. And respectful is also, I like that word that you use, it very respectful. I want to add something here. I have shared this information with anybody who would listen for the past couple of weeks because I really am curious about people's reactions. I want to know what knowledgeable people know about this already. Yeah. So I've spoken to people at the health food store, people at the bookstore, the metaphysical bookstore. They were fascinated. And like I said, you could see the light bulbs coming on. Yeah. So I've talked to several other healers who have a lot of knowledge and information in other places. And when I spoke to them over the phone, they were silent for a second and then just said, "Oh my God, wow. Like you could tell that their mind was a little blown, that they hadn't thought of it before, but it somehow is really connecting with people. So I see a chiropractor and an acupuncturist, and as you can imagine, I pick their brains a lot. And we have very interesting conversations. So they're used to me, my weirdness, but I explained to them what happened with the migraines and told them I really don't know. I don't know, but both of them did the same thing. Looked to the side for a minute, looked up. You could see them processing. And both said, I am going to pass that on to other people. I think there's something valid there. And the acupuncturist actually validated my supposition that it is electrical. He said, I think that there's a good chance that there was a lot of electrical energy in your head with the kind of migraines that you have, and that it did draw it out towards the salt. So I thought that was a really interesting confirmation from somebody who has a lot of experience.
That's right.
So I thought that was interesting, and I'm fascinated about how fascinated people are with this.
Yes. I shared it with my my naturopath, and she's a great naturopath. She's a very seasoned naturopath. She has been around for a little while. She knows a lot of modality. She does use the old modality of curing or helping. And so I was expressing to her, I was sharing with her the information that I shared with you about the salt and how it has worked for me and how it has worked for some of my clients. And the same thing, like you're saying, you could see them like, oh my God, like her eyes, first of all, got twice as big. She's like, really? Wow, like that's incredible. I'm going to pass it on. The same thing. She's like, I'm going to pass it on. And it's, again, there's something there that we are remembering that's triggering a memory from somewhere in the subconscious that it's clicking. And so hopefully we'll do more experiments, someone who's more knowledgeable of doing more experiments and sharing it and studying it more, that will share it with us, because I am so excited about this, and I'm so excited to find out more about it. I know it has a lot of minerals in it that we are missing. And it also has something else. What is it called? I can't forget the name now, but there's something else associated with the salt also. The other thing that we forget to mention is that when we have it in our hand, automatically you can taste salt in your mouth.
Yes, that's for me, absolutely, especially the Himalayan salt.
Yes.
The second I put it in my hand, I can taste it in the back of my throat. That's really fascinating to me. So
for me, I taste it in the tips of my tongue and the lips. I could taste it. And in fact, we were at the meditation class. Some of the ladies said exactly the same thing. One of the ladies said, she goes, all I want to do is lick it.
Actually, what's interesting is one of the gals at the bookstore said her daughter has adrenal problems, and that's exactly what she does. When I don't know how she knows that they're low or what, but she says she has the rock salt like that, and she will just lick it, and it helps her. So I don't know. So
just don't go around licking everybody else's salt.
Yeah,
okay?
let's hope she's not doing that.
Lick your own salt.
Exactly. So again, our request is to everybody out there, what do you know about this? If you know something about this, write in and let us know. We are so curious. If you try it, and please let us know what modality you're trying it with. So if you're a healer or practitioner and you're adding it to something that you already do, please let us know what that thing is. Or if you're just experimenting and a weirdo in the middle of the night with salt in your hands, let us know that too. Because we're so curious about how this can help us and more people. I feel like this is what's important amongst healers, practitioners, moms, people who work in stores that talk to people who are looking for healing and health. Mm-hmm. If we can spread these little things, look at what it can lift. If it just lifted people's mood, how much would that help? So please write into us. You can reach Carmela Lamanna where?
At powerofrisingspirit.com, my website, or you can email me at carmelalamanna@outlook.com. Yeah. I totally forgot there for a minute. I have a couple of pages on Facebook. I have my Power of Rising Spirit page where I post all my spiritual messages, whatever comes to me, I post it there, inspirational messages, Instagram or LinkedIn.
And on Wednesday evenings, Eastern time, you do Eastern time in the United States, you do a little podcast with your friend Nancy. It's called the Spirited Duo.
Yes.
Where you talk about all kinds of topics. So where can people find that?
That is, again, on Facebook, on the page of the Spirited Duo page. It's attached to my personal page. And again, tonight is free messages. So if anybody who wants, join in, ask a question or email us a question or message, a question on Messenger prior to it if you want. And we'll try our best to get to everyone. We usually do because we feel bad that we don't. And so, and then every Wednesday we do have where sometimes we have guests over, or we talk about some topic that is relatable to anybody. Also, I do every Saturday afternoon from 1 to 3, I hold the Sacred Circle of 8 healing group. And every Thursday night, I do have a meditation class going on. And then every Monday night, me and Nancy, most of it's her at her house or her place. We do another meditation class that's more of a spiritual based, where it's a development spiritual class.
And people can work with you online as well, correct?
Definitely,
so you're in the Barrie area of Canada, outside of Toronto. So if you're local to that area, you can meet with Carmela face-to-face or online. If you are in the Southern Oregon area, you can reach me and work with me directly or online. We work with people online as well too, actually more than in person anymore, isn't it? So I love that Denise Lynn said that cyberspace can be sacred space too.
Yes.
And that's true. So we'll make sure everybody has the information and the contacts. Please reach out to both of us or one of us and let us know what you're doing with this and what you think about it. We're really curious about that, what comes to mind and what your thoughts are. So thank you, my dear friend Carmela.
Thank you for having me, and thank you for listening.
And we'll come back and talk more about some of the new things you're dreaming into existence. So we'll talk about that soon. Thanks. Talk soon. Ciao.
Thank you.
Ciao, everyone. Bye.
Love it all.